The champagne was still fizzing in my glass when I saw them. It was exactly 11:58 on New Year's Eve, 2 minutes before midnight. 2 minutes before I was supposed to kiss my fiancé and celebrate the beginning of what I thought would be the best year of my life. Instead, I stood frozen in the doorway of my mother's guest bedroom, watching my sister Olivia press her lips against Nathan's mouth while his hands tangled in her hair. The same hands that had slipped a diamond ring onto my finger 8 months earlier. The same lips that had promised to love me until death. My name is Emma Collins, and this is the story of how my younger sister stole my fiancé on New Year's Eve, and how I made absolutely certain they both paid for every second of their betrayal. I need to take you back to the beginning to help you understand just how deep this knife cut when it was finally plunged into my back. Olivia and I were not always enemies. There was a time, years ago, when I would have done anything for her. She was my baby sister, 3 years younger, the one I had protected on playgrounds and defended against bullies, and tutored through math classes she never bothered to study for. Our father died when I was 12, and Olivia was 9, a sudden heart attack that left our mother a widow with 2 daughters and a substantial life insurance policy that she treated more like a personal shopping fund than a college savings account. Growing up, I was the responsible one. I got scholarships, worked part-time jobs, graduated from law school with honors, while Olivia floated through life on a cloud of our mother's indulgence and her own natural beauty. She wanted to be an actress, which meant she spent her 20s auditioning for roles she never got while living in the guest house of our mother's Connecticut estate and spending money she never earned. I did not resent her for it, not really. She was my sister. I loved her unconditionally, or at least I thought I did. I thought love meant accepting someone exactly as they were, flaws and all. I did not realize that Olivia's flaws ran so much deeper than laziness or entitlement. I met Nathan Reed at a charity gala 3 years before that fateful New Year's Eve. He was handsome in that polished magazine cover way that usually made me suspicious, but there was something about his smile that seemed genuine. He was a real estate developer, successful but not flashy, charming but not slick. He pursued me with a persistence that I found flattering, sending flowers to my office, remembering small details about my life that I had mentioned in passing, making me feel seen in ways I had never experienced before. We dated for 2 years before he proposed on a private beach in the Maldives, getting down on one knee as the sun set over the Indian Ocean. I said yes without hesitation. I thought I had found my person, my partner, the man I would build a life with. I was 28 years old, established in my career as a corporate lawyer, finally ready to start thinking about marriage and family, and all the things I had postponed while I was busy being the responsible daughter. Nathan seemed perfect. He adored me, supported my career, got along with my mother, and even seemed to genuinely like Olivia, despite her obvious flaws. That should have been my first warning sign. Everyone genuinely liking Olivia always preceded disaster. The trouble started so gradually that I did not recognize it for what it was. About 6 months before the engagement, Olivia's acting career hit a new low. She had been counting on landing a recurring role in a streaming series, had already told everyone she knew about it, had even started looking at apartments in Los Angeles. When she did not get the part, she spiraled. She stopped auditioning entirely, started drinking more than usual, began showing up at my apartment at odd hours, wanting to talk about how unfair life was. I comforted her because that is what big sisters do. I listened to her complaints about the industry, validated her feelings, assured her that her time would come. Nathan was there for a lot of these conversations. He would sit with us, offer encouraging words, make Olivia laugh when she was crying. I thought he was being a wonderful future brother-in-law. I thought his kindness toward my sister was evidence of his good character. I did not notice the way Olivia started looking at him when she thought I was not watching. I did not notice the way she began timing her visits for moments when Nathan was most likely to be at my apartment. I did not notice the subtle shift in their dynamic from friendly to something else entirely. Looking back, I can pinpoint the exact moment things changed. It was about 4 months before New Year's Eve, at my mother's annual autumn dinner party. Olivia arrived late, wearing a dress that was far too formal for the occasion, her makeup flawless, her hair professionally styled. She made a beeline for Nathan the moment she walked in, hugging him just a beat too long, laughing just a bit too loudly at his jokes, finding excuses to touch his arm throughout the evening. I mentioned it to Nathan on the drive home, trying to keep my tone light and joking rather than accusatory. I said something about Olivia seeming extra friendly tonight. Nathan's response should have told me everything. He got defensive immediately, said I was being paranoid, accused me of not trusting him, turned the conversation into an argument about my insecurities rather than his behavior. By the time we got home, I was apologizing to him for even bringing it up. That is how skilled he was at manipulation. That is how thoroughly I had been conditioned to doubt my own perceptions. But the seed of suspicion had been planted, and once I started paying attention, I could not stop seeing things that made my stomach turn. The way Nathan's phone was suddenly always face down on the table. The new password on his laptop that he claimed was for work security. The business trips that seemed to be happening more frequently, always to cities where Olivia had friends she liked to visit. The texts from my sister that he would glance at and quickly dismiss as nothing important. The way Olivia stopped coming to me for comfort and started making excuses for why she could not attend family dinners where Nathan would be present. I told myself I was being crazy. Nathan loved me. Olivia was my sister. Neither of them would ever betray me like that. I buried my suspicions under wedding planning and work deadlines and the general busyness of life. I chose not to see what was right in front of me because seeing it would have destroyed the future I had carefully constructed. Then came my best friend, Maya. Maya Chen and I had been friends since our freshman year of college. She was an investigative journalist now, the kind who exposed corruption and broke stories that made powerful people very uncomfortable. She had a sixth sense for deception, honed by years of digging into the ugliest parts of human nature. About 3 weeks before New Year's Eve, she took me to lunch and said she needed to tell me something difficult. She had seen Nathan and Olivia together. Not at a family event, not in any context that could be explained innocently. She had seen them at a small restaurant in Brooklyn, the kind of place where people go when they do not want to be recognized. They had been sitting close together, talking intensely, and at one point, Olivia had reached across the table and held Nathan's hand. Maya had taken a photo on her phone, a blurry image that showed 2 figures who were unmistakably my fiancé and my sister in a moment of intimacy that made my blood run cold. I did not believe her. I could not believe her. I looked at that photo and told myself it could be anyone, that Maya must be mistaken, that there had to be an innocent explanation. When I confronted Nathan about it that night, he did not miss a beat. He said Olivia had been going through something personal, something she had asked him to keep confidential, and he had been meeting with her to offer support on my behalf. He said he had not told me because Olivia had specifically asked him not to, and he was respecting her privacy. He said the hand-holding was just comfort, nothing more, and he was hurt that I would jump to such ugly conclusions. Then he called Olivia and put her on speaker. My sister's voice came through the phone, tearful and sincere, explaining that she had been struggling with depression and had not wanted to burden me. She said Nathan had been checking on her, making sure she was okay, and she was sorry if it had looked inappropriate, but nothing was going on. She said she loved me, would never do anything to hurt me, and could not believe I would think so little of her. By the end of the call, I was the one apologizing. I called Maya and told her she had misread the situation. I pushed down my doubts and threw myself into planning the perfect wedding. I chose to believe the lie because the truth was too painful to accept. New Year's Eve was supposed to be a celebration. My mother had insisted on hosting a party at her estate, a chance for family and close friends to ring in the new year together before the wedding took over everyone's lives. Nathan and I arrived early to help set up, and I remember feeling genuinely happy as I arranged flowers and taste-tested appetizers. Olivia was there too, unusually helpful, offering to handle the music and make sure the champagne was properly chilled. She hugged me when she saw me and told me she was so excited for my wedding that she could not wait to be my maid of honor, that this was going to be the best year of our lives. The party was beautiful. 50 of our closest friends and family members, glittering decorations, a live jazz band playing in the corner. Nathan was attentive all evening, bringing me drinks, introducing me to his business associates, putting his arm around me whenever we posed for photos. I felt like the luckiest woman in the world. I had no idea that my luck was about to run out in the most devastating way possible. At around 11:30, I realized I had not seen Olivia in nearly an hour. Nathan had disappeared about 20 minutes earlier, claiming he needed to take a work call. My mother said Olivia had gone upstairs to fix her makeup, but that seemed like a long time to spend in front of a mirror. I was not consciously suspicious. I think I just wanted to find my sister and share the excitement of the countdown approaching. I wanted us to be together when the clock struck midnight, the way we had been every New Year's Eve since we were children. I walked upstairs without any sense of foreboding. I checked the main bathroom, which was empty. I walked down the hallway toward the guest bedrooms, and that is when I heard voices coming from behind a closed door. Nathan's voice, low and urgent. Olivia's voice, breathless and pleading. I should have walked away. I should have gone back downstairs and pretended I had not heard anything. But something in me needed to know, needed to see, needed to stop living in denial. I opened the door without knocking. The image of what I saw is seared into my memory with perfect, excruciating clarity. Nathan and Olivia were standing by the window, their bodies pressed together, their mouths locked in a kiss that was anything but innocent. Her hands were in his hair. His hands were on her waist. They were so absorbed in each other that they did not even notice me for several seconds. When they finally pulled apart and saw me standing in the doorway, the expressions on their faces told me everything I needed to know. Nathan looked guilty. Olivia looked triumphant. I do not remember exactly what I said. I know I screamed something, probably obscenities, probably accusations. I know Nathan tried to explain, his words tumbling over each other in a pathetic attempt at damage control. He said it was not what it looked like, that it had just happened, that he never meant to hurt me. Every word out of his mouth was a lie, and for the first time, I could see him clearly. The mask had finally slipped, and underneath was nothing but selfishness and cowardice. But it was Olivia's reaction that shattered me completely. My sister, the girl I had protected and defended and loved unconditionally for 26 years, did not apologize. She did not cry or beg for forgiveness or even pretend to feel remorse. Instead, she looked me directly in the eyes and said 4 words that I will never forget. She said it is not stealing if he comes willingly. Then she smiled. Downstairs I could hear the countdown beginning. 10, 9, 8. The guests were cheering, oblivious to the destruction happening above them. 7, 6, 5. Nathan was still talking, still making excuses, still trying to salvage something from the wreckage. 4, 3, 2. Olivia had not moved, was still watching me with that smug, satisfied expression that told me she had planned this moment, had savored it, had wanted me to catch them exactly like this. 1. Happy New Year. Fireworks exploded outside the window. Champagne corks popped downstairs. Somewhere in the house, someone was playing Auld Lang Syne, and I stood in that doorway, watching my future crumble to dust, understanding for the first time that the 2 people I had trusted most in the world had been laughing at me behind my back. I turned and walked away without another word. I retrieved my coat and my purse and my car keys, and I drove home through streets full of celebrating people, tears streaming down my face, my engagement ring burning on my finger like a brand. By the time I got to my apartment, I had made a decision. I was not going to fall apart. I was not going to let them win. I was going to find out exactly how deep this betrayal went, and then I was going to make them both pay in ways they could never have imagined. The investigation started the very next day. My first call was to Maya, who answered despite the late hour, and did not say "I told you so," even though she had every right to. She came over immediately, bringing coffee and her laptop and the particular kind of focused energy that made her such a formidable journalist. We sat at my kitchen table until dawn, mapping out everything I knew and everything I suspected, creating a timeline of Nathan and Olivia's relationship that went back much further than I had realized. Maya had resources I did not. She had contacts at phone companies who could pull records, sources in the banking industry who could trace financial transactions, colleagues who specialized in digital forensics. Within 48 hours, she had built a picture of my fiancé and my sister's affair that was far more comprehensive and far more devastating than I had imagined. They had been sleeping together for over a year. Not 4 months, not 6 months, but 14 months of secret meetings and hidden messages and calculated deception. The affair had started just weeks after Nathan and I got engaged, when Olivia had supposedly been devastated about losing that acting role. She had not been devastated at all. She had been planning. She had seen my happiness and my success and my future with Nathan, and she had decided she wanted it for herself. The evidence Maya uncovered painted a portrait of systematic betrayal. Hotel receipts in both their names, plane tickets to destinations they had visited together while I was busy with work, credit card charges for expensive dinners and jewelry and lingerie that I had never seen. But the most damaging discovery was a series of text messages that Maya's contact had managed to recover from a cloud backup. The messages revealed the full extent of their conspiracy. Nathan and Olivia had not just been having an affair. They had been planning a future together, one that involved taking everything from me and leaving me with nothing. Nathan had never loved me. He had targeted me specifically because of my career and my family's money and the connections I could provide for his business. Our entire relationship had been a calculated investment, and Olivia had been his exit strategy from the moment she offered herself as an alternative. But it got worse. So much worse. 3 months before our engagement, Nathan's real estate development company had been in serious financial trouble. He had overextended on several properties and was facing potential bankruptcy. That was when he had started dating me, a successful corporate lawyer with wealthy family connections and a reputation for trustworthiness. I had introduced him to investors, had vouched for him with my mother's social circle, had essentially rebuilt his business credibility through my association with him. Once he was stable again, once he had extracted everything useful from me, he had started looking for a way out. Olivia had provided that way out in exchange for something she had always wanted: status, money, the chance to finally be the sister who came out on top. The text messages made it clear that their plan had been unfolding for months. Nathan would break off the engagement, citing irreconcilable differences, and after a respectable waiting period, he and Olivia would go public with their relationship. In the meantime, Olivia had been systematically poisoning my mother against me, planting seeds of doubt about my character, suggesting that I was too focused on work to appreciate family, too cold to make Nathan happy, too selfish to see anyone else's needs. By the time the breakup happened, Olivia would have positioned herself as the sympathetic one, the loving sister who had only stepped in after Nathan was available, the one who truly understood how to make a relationship work. They had never expected me to catch them. The scene in the guest bedroom had been unplanned, a moment of carelessness driven by champagne and arrogance and the thrill of deception. Olivia's triumphant response had not been premeditated cruelty. It had been the mask slipping, the true face of her resentment finally showing itself after years of pretending to love me. Reading those messages, I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not just grief, not just anger, but a kind of crystalline clarity that I had never experienced before. These two people had conspired to use me, to drain me of everything valuable, and then to discard me while rewriting history to make themselves the heroes. They had counted on my love for them to blind me to their schemes. They had wagered that I would be too hurt, too humiliated, too broken to fight back. They were about to learn how badly they had miscalculated. The first phase of my plan involved documentation. I was a lawyer, and I knew that evidence was everything. Over the next 2 weeks, I compiled every piece of information Maya and I had gathered into an organized file. Bank statements, phone records, text messages, hotel receipts, plane tickets, everything. I also began quietly reaching out to people in Nathan's business circle, asking casual questions, listening more than I spoke, gathering intelligence about his current financial situation and his business practices. What I discovered was illuminating. Nathan's recovery from near bankruptcy had not been entirely legitimate. Some of the investors I had introduced him to had been misled about the stability of his projects. Money had been moved between accounts in ways that looked suspicious to my trained legal eye. He had not crossed into outright fraud, but he had danced very close to the line, and several of his business partners were growing uneasy about his methods. One partner in particular caught my attention. Derek Lawson had co-invested with Nathan on 3 major development projects, and according to my sources, he had become increasingly concerned about discrepancies in the financial reports. When I reached out to Derek under the guise of discussing a legal matter related to one of the properties, he agreed to meet me almost immediately. It turned out he had been looking for someone to talk to, someone who might validate his suspicions that something was very wrong with Nathan Reed. Derek became my ally in ways I could not have anticipated. He was a genuinely ethical businessman, someone who had built his career on transparency and fair dealing, and he was horrified to discover the extent of Nathan's deception. When I showed him the documentation I had gathered, including evidence of how Nathan had misrepresented project timelines and budget allocations to their shared investors, Derek's face went pale. He said he had suspected something but had not wanted to believe it. He said he had a fiduciary duty to the investors and could not ignore what I was showing him. He asked what I wanted him to do. I told him I wanted justice. I wanted Nathan to face consequences for his actions, not just the betrayal of our relationship, but the betrayal of everyone who had trusted him with their money. I wanted the truth to be exposed, publicly and irrevocably, and I wanted my sister to understand that her victory was going to be very short-lived. Derek agreed to help. He began conducting his own internal audit of their joint ventures, documenting every irregularity, building a case that would eventually be presented to the investors and, if necessary, to regulatory authorities. The process would take time, but it would be thorough, and it would be devastating. While Derek worked on the business side, I focused on something equally important. My mother. Patricia Collins had always favored Olivia. I understood why, in a detached intellectual way. Olivia was easier to love, more charming, more willing to play the role of the adoring daughter. I had always been too independent, too focused on my career, too unwilling to indulge my mother's need for drama and attention. After my father died, my mother had retreated into a world of social climbing and image maintenance, and Olivia had been her eager accomplice while I had been her constant disappointment. But even my mother had limits, and Olivia had pushed past them without realizing it. About a week after New Year's Eve, I visited my mother at her estate. She greeted me with cool politeness, already primed by Olivia's narrative to see me as the villain in this story. She said she had heard about what happened, that it was terribly unfortunate, that perhaps it was for the best since Nathan had clearly been unhappy. She suggested that I had been too focused on work to give him the attention he needed, that maybe if I had been more present, more loving, more like Olivia, things would have turned out differently. I listened without arguing. Then I pulled out my tablet and began showing her the evidence. I showed her the timeline of the affair, proving that it had started long before any supposed problems in my relationship with Nathan. I showed her the text messages where Olivia mocked our mother's neediness and called her pathetic. I showed her bank records indicating that Olivia had been taking money from the household accounts, small amounts that added up to nearly $20,000 over the past 2 years. I showed her messages where Olivia and Nathan laughed about how easy it was to manipulate Patricia, how Olivia had learned exactly which buttons to push to keep our mother on her side. My mother's face cycled through disbelief, denial, anger, and finally a devastated acceptance that broke something in me despite everything. She had not been a perfect mother. She had favored the wrong daughter for all the wrong reasons. But she did not deserve to be used and mocked by the child she had loved so unconditionally. When I finished my presentation, my mother was silent for a long moment. Then she asked what I wanted her to do. I told her I wanted the truth. I wanted Olivia to face consequences. And I wanted my mother to stop enabling the daughter who had been stealing from her and laughing about it behind her back. My mother agreed, but I could see the conflict in her eyes. Olivia was still her daughter. The bonds of blood are not easily severed, even when they have been poisoned by betrayal. I did not push for immediate action. I simply planted the seeds and waited for them to grow. The next few weeks were a careful exercise in patience and strategy. Nathan had been trying to contact me, sending apologetic messages and leaving voicemails full of excuses. He wanted to talk, he said. He wanted to explain. He was willing to work on things if I was willing to listen. I ignored every attempt, blocking his number and rerouting his emails to a folder I never opened. Let him wonder what I was planning. Let him sweat. Olivia, predictably, had made no effort to apologize. She had moved out of my mother's guest house and into Nathan's apartment, posting photos on social media of their happy new life together. She looked triumphant in every image, glowing with the satisfaction of having finally beaten her older sister at something. She did not know that her victory photos would become evidence, that her public declarations of love for my former fiancé would be used to establish the timeline of their relationship, that every smug caption was another nail in her coffin. I filed for the return of my engagement ring in early February. Under state law, an engagement ring is considered a conditional gift, and since Nathan had broken the engagement through his infidelity, I was entitled to have it returned. The ring was worth approximately $30,000, money I did not particularly need but intended to take from him purely on principle. Nathan fought the claim initially, but when my lawyer made it clear that we were prepared to enter the evidence of his affair into the public record, he backed down. The ring was returned within 2 weeks, and I donated the proceeds to a charity for survivors of domestic betrayal. But that was just the beginning. In March, Derek completed his audit and presented his findings to the investor group. The meeting was private, but I had provided Derek with a detailed briefing on exactly how to frame the information for maximum impact. Nathan had misallocated funds across multiple projects, had inflated projected returns to attract investment, and had used money from newer projects to cover shortfalls in older ones. It was not quite a Ponzi scheme, but it was close enough to make everyone very nervous. The investors demanded an independent forensic accounting of all Nathan's projects. When the accountants finished their work 6 weeks later, the picture was even worse than anyone had expected. Nathan had been juggling money so aggressively that several projects were now insolvent, and the investors stood to lose millions if they did not act quickly. Legal action followed. 3 investor groups filed lawsuits against Nathan for breach of fiduciary duty and fraudulent misrepresentation. His real estate license was suspended pending investigation. His business partner Derek publicly dissolved their partnership, issuing a statement that made it clear he had been deceived along with everyone else. The news coverage was extensive and unflattering. Nathan's professional reputation was destroyed in a matter of weeks. The man who had been celebrated as a rising star in Connecticut real estate was now a cautionary tale, a warning about trusting the wrong people with your money. He was forced to sell his apartment, his car, and most of his assets to settle the lawsuits. The lifestyle he had enjoyed while using me was gone, replaced by the consequences of his own greed and dishonesty. But I was not finished. Olivia had escaped the initial fallout relatively unscathed. She had distanced herself from Nathan's business dealings, claiming she had no knowledge of his financial schemes, positioning herself as another victim of his deception. She had even managed to spin a sympathetic narrative about falling in love with the wrong man and being too blinded by emotion to see his flaws. Some people believed her. My mother, weakened by conflicting loyalties, had not yet cut her off completely. I needed to change that. Maya came through again, this time with information that Olivia had been desperately trying to hide. During the height of her affair with Nathan, Olivia had borrowed money from several of my mother's friends, using our family name and her connection to the Collins estate as collateral. She had claimed the money was for acting classes and career development, but the receipts told a different story. The money had been spent on trips with Nathan, designer clothes, expensive dinners, and most damning of all, a secret cosmetic procedure that she had told everyone was just good skincare. The total amount was nearly $45,000, borrowed from 5 different women who considered my mother a close friend. None of them had been repaid. None of them had even known about each other until I brought them together for a conversation about their shared experiences with my sister. The fallout from that conversation was immediate and severe. My mother's social circle, the world of charity galas and country club lunches that she had carefully cultivated for decades, turned against Olivia with the same speed they had once embraced her. Women who had considered her charming and delightful now saw her as a con artist who had exploited their kindness and friendship with Patricia Collins. Invitations stopped coming. Doors that had once been open slammed shut. The social currency that Olivia had been counting on to rebuild her life after Nathan's downfall evaporated overnight. My mother, faced with the public humiliation of her daughter's behavior, finally took the action I had been waiting for. She removed Olivia from her will and issued a statement to her friends making it clear that she did not condone her younger daughter's actions. The guest house that Olivia had treated as her personal property was sold, the proceeds used to repay the women she had deceived. My mother also apologized to me, privately and sincerely, for years of favoritism that had allowed Olivia to believe she could get away with anything. I accepted the apology, though I knew our relationship would never fully heal. Too much damage had been done, too many years of being overlooked and undervalued. But having my mother finally see the truth was a victory in itself, a validation that I had not imagined the unfairness I had experienced growing up in Olivia's shadow. The final piece of my revenge came from an unexpected source. About 4 months after New Year's Eve, I received a message from someone I had never met. Her name was Sarah Mercer, and she had been engaged to Nathan Reed 5 years before I met him. She had seen the news coverage of his legal troubles and had recognized the pattern immediately. She wanted to talk. Sarah's story was heartbreakingly similar to mine. Nathan had pursued her aggressively, made her feel special and seen, proposed after a whirlwind romance. Then, once he had access to her social connections and family resources, he had begun cheating with her best friend. The betrayal had destroyed Sarah's mental health and nearly ended her career. She had spent years rebuilding her life, and she had never told anyone the full story because she had been too ashamed. But she was not the only one. Sarah had done some research after seeing my situation unfold publicly, and she had found 2 other women with nearly identical experiences. Nathan Reed had a pattern. He targeted successful, trusting women, used them for their connections and resources, and then discarded them for someone new when he had extracted everything useful. We were not victims of a momentary lapse in judgment. We were victims of a calculated predator who had been operating for over a decade. Together, we built a comprehensive case documenting Nathan's history of manipulation and betrayal. Sarah connected me with a journalist at a major newspaper who was interested in writing a feature about serial relationship fraud. The article, which ran in June, exposed Nathan as a pattern predator who had deliberately targeted and exploited at least 4 women over a 12-year period. It included quotes from all of us, as well as commentary from psychologists who explained the tactics Nathan had used to gain our trust and maintain his deception. The article went viral. Nathan's name became synonymous with relationship fraud, cited in countless social media discussions about red flags and manipulation tactics. He was effectively unhireable, undateable, and completely destroyed in every arena that mattered. The golden boy who had once charmed his way through Connecticut's elite circles was now a cautionary tale, a punchline, a warning to every woman who might be tempted to trust someone like him. As for Olivia, the article mentioned her too. Not as extensively as Nathan, but enough to cement her reputation as someone who had knowingly participated in her sister's betrayal. She was identified as the other woman, the sister who had stolen her sibling's fiancé, the opportunist who had enabled a predator in exchange for her own advancement. Her dreams of an acting career already on life support died completely. No casting director wanted to be associated with someone whose name had become synonymous with family betrayal. The last time I saw Olivia was about 8 months after New Year's Eve. She appeared at my apartment unannounced, thinner than I remembered, with dark circles under her eyes and desperation in her voice. Nathan had left her. He had found someone new, another successful woman with resources to exploit. And he had discarded Olivia the same way he had discarded me and Sarah, and everyone else before us. She was broke, alone, and finally understanding what it felt like to be thrown away. She begged me for forgiveness. She cried and apologized and swore that she had never meant to hurt me, that she had been manipulated by Nathan just like everyone else, that she was not really the person her actions suggested she was. She asked if we could start over, if she could be my sister again, if I could find it in my heart to give her another chance. I listened without interrupting. When she finished, I told her that I had one question. I asked her why she had done it. Not the affair itself, which could perhaps be explained by attraction or loneliness or weakness. I asked her why she had spent years undermining me, stealing from our mother, mocking the family that had given her everything. I asked her why, when I had caught her with Nathan, her first instinct had been to gloat rather than apologize. I asked her what I had ever done to deserve the calculated cruelty she had shown me. Olivia was silent for a long time. When she finally answered, her voice was barely a whisper. She said she had always hated me. Not consciously, not in a way she could articulate, but in a deep, visceral way that had been part of her for as long as she could remember. She said she had hated my success, my stability, my ability to build a life without needing constant validation from others. She said she had hated the way our father had looked at me with pride, the way our mother deferred to my judgment, the way everyone seemed to assume that I was the real Colin's daughter, while she was just the bonus. She said she had spent her entire life feeling like a supporting character in the story of my success, and when the opportunity came to finally take something from me, she had grabbed it without hesitation. She said she was sorry now. She said she understood now. She said she wanted to be different. I looked at my sister, this woman I had loved and protected for 26 years, and I felt something I had not expected. Not anger, not satisfaction, not even grief. I felt nothing. The love I had once felt for Olivia had been killed by her betrayal. Not just the affair with Nathan, but the revelation of a lifetime of hidden resentment and calculated cruelty. You cannot rebuild a relationship on a foundation that never existed. You cannot trust someone who has confessed that their hatred of you is fundamental to their identity. You cannot save someone who does not want to be saved, who only wants to be rescued from the consequences of their own choices. I told Olivia that I forgave her, not because she deserved it, but because carrying the weight of unforgiveness was too heavy a burden for me to bear. I told her that I hoped she would find a way to build a better life, to become the person she claimed she wanted to be, to break free from the jealousy and resentment that had consumed her for so long. Then I told her to leave and never contact me again. She left. I have not seen or spoken to her since. It has been almost a year since that New Year's Eve when my world collapsed. In some ways it feels like a lifetime ago. In others it feels like yesterday. The scars from that betrayal will never fully heal. I still have moments when I wake up gasping, dreams of Nathan's lies and Olivia's smug smile fresh in my mind. I still have trust issues that I am working through with a therapist. I still flinch sometimes when I meet someone new, wondering what mask they might be wearing, what knife they might be hiding behind their back. But I also have strength that I did not have before. The fire of betrayal burned away a lot of things: naivety and blind trust, and the belief that loving someone unconditionally was enough to make them love you back. In their place, something harder and more resilient grew. I know now that I can survive the worst thing that has ever happened to me. I know that I can fight back against people who underestimate me. I know that I can build a life on my own terms, without depending on anyone else's love or loyalty. My career has flourished since the breakup. I was promoted to partner at my law firm, the youngest in the company's history. I used the platform to establish a pro bono practice, helping victims of financial fraud navigate the legal system. Several of Nathan's victims have become clients, and helping them find justice has given me a sense of purpose that I never had before. I am not just surviving my betrayal. I am using it to make a difference in the lives of others who have experienced similar pain. Maya remains my closest friend, the person I trust more than anyone else in the world. She stood by me through the darkest months of my life, never once suggesting that I should move on or let go or forgive before I was ready. She understood that revenge was not about spite or pettiness. It was about restoring balance, about refusing to let the people who hurt me profit from their cruelty, about proving to myself that I was not powerless in the face of betrayal. My mother and I are rebuilding our relationship, slowly and carefully. The years of favoritism cannot be erased, and there are still moments when I see her slip into old patterns of excusing Olivia or romanticizing the past. But she is trying, genuinely trying, to see me for who I am, rather than who she always assumed I was. We have dinner together once a week now, and sometimes we even manage to talk about things other than the family drama that consumed us for so long. Derek became an unexpected friend through all of this. We meet for coffee occasionally, comparing notes on our lives and careers, laughing about the absurdity of how we met. He has rebuilt his business on even stronger ethical foundations, and he credits me with pushing him to confront the problems he had been trying to ignore. There is nothing romantic between us, but there is a bond forged in shared adversity that I suspect will last for many years. As for Nathan and Olivia, I have stopped keeping track of their lives. The last I heard, Nathan had relocated to another state, trying to reinvent himself in a market where his reputation had not preceded him. Olivia was apparently working as a receptionist somewhere, a far cry from the glamorous life she had always imagined for herself. Whether they are still together, I neither know nor care. They are characters from a closed chapter of my story, and I have no interest in revisiting those pages. New Year's Eve will never be the same for me. The holiday that once represented hope and new beginnings now carries the weight of the worst night of my life. But I have learned to reclaim it, to transform it from a reminder of betrayal into a celebration of survival. Last December 31st, I stood on my balcony at midnight with a glass of champagne in my hand, watching fireworks paint the sky in colors of gold and silver, and I made a toast to myself. To the woman who had been broken and had rebuilt herself stronger. To the sister who had been betrayed and had refused to be destroyed. To the person I had become because of everything I had survived. If you are listening to this and you have experienced similar betrayal, I want you to know something important. The pain you are feeling is real. The rage is justified. The desire for justice is not petty or vindictive. It is human. It is healthy. It is the natural response to being treated as less than human by someone who claimed to love you. But revenge, true revenge, is not about destruction. It is about exposure. It is about forcing the people who hurt you to face the consequences of their actions. It is about proving to yourself and to the world that their narrative does not get to be the only one. They wanted to make you the villain. They wanted to rewrite history to cast themselves as the heroes. Your revenge is showing everyone the truth and letting that truth speak for itself. My sister stole my fiancé on New Year's Eve. She did it deliberately, cruelly, with malice that I still struggle to fully comprehend. But she did not steal my future. She did not steal my strength. She did not steal my ability to love and trust and hope, even when those things feel difficult. She took from me, but in the end, she lost so much more. And that, more than any legal victory or social consequence, is the revenge that matters most. This is my story. This is my truth. And this is the ending I chose to write for myself. Happy New Year.